Hello everybody, welcome to the first English episode of T9A in Bavaria. Today I'm talking about the internal balance survey here of the ninth age. Well, let's have a look at the picture. The internal balance is about the entries of one army book. Each army book has units which are more cost efficient, bring more bang for the points, and entries which bring less bang for the points, so are less point efficient. Looking at the picture, the units on the left are the ones with the least price effectiveness, the ones on the right are the ones with the biggest price efficiency. The size of the bar represents how many entries of that cost effectiveness we have. So this an entry on the most left side is never or rarely seen, as it's perceived or really is internally underpowered or overpriced. The entries in the middle of the graphic are seen average often, as they seem to bring average value relatively to the other entries. The entries at the most right are the ones which auto-click themselves into lists which are almost or real auto-include. They are internally overpowered or underpriced. Well, let's see another graphic. Here, every book has those entries. Here we've got two army books, book A and book B. Well, if you look close by book A, the army on the most left is far more away from the average from the middle than at army book B. And that's the same with the entry on the most right. So at army book A, the least price efficient entry is far less price efficient than the most price efficient entry than in book B, whereas the difference of effectiveness much smaller. And the goal is to bring those entries more together to reduce the gap in effectiveness. Let's have a look at the external balance now. Every book is grouped in external balance, how good that book performs on average against each other book. Well, each other book? No, against the totality of the other books. Then the books on the most left are the ones which are most below the average external power level. The ones on the right, on the most right, are the ones which are well above the average external power level. The ones in the middle are most near to the average or desired external power level. And here's the goal, again, to bring those armies much more together. Here on the second picture of the external balance graphic, you can see the armies are far nearer to each other and far nearer to the middle. So the weakest army on this graphic has a much smaller distance to the strongest army than in the picture above. So the amount of advantage or disadvantage one gains through picking a certain army is reduced. And now we are putting both together. We've got the army books in the distance to the average power level, to the desired power level, and we've got each entry of the book. If we look at the blue book, we've got a book which in total underperforms. And in that we've got some units which are still, compared to the other units of that book, the best bang for the buck or for the points. And we've got entries which are the least bang for the buck, the least cost point efficient entries. So an underpowered book can have internal, in comparison to the entries of that book, underpowered entries. Let's look at the overpowered book, the orange one. Well, there we've got on the most left part of the orange book the entries which underperform or are much less taken than the average, and even far less taken than the most often taken ones. The ones which are perceived to be the strongest, the most point or cost efficient entries of the book. But we also, so even an theoretical overpowered book can have units which are internally underpowered. Well, here we see as overpowered, the internally overpowered regarded the entries of the example box of the blue ones. Despite one book as in total being overpowered and the other in total being underpowered. So what? The internal power level is the independent from the external power level of the whole book. And here we see from the blue books entries classified as internally underpowered regardless of how the externally power of the book is. And that's the next picture. We see what the balance survey is trying to do. It is trying to bring the most and the least price efficient entries of a book much more together. The external power level of the book is for that case irrelevant and can and should be ignored for that. Because if the book is externally underpowered, but after the adjustment of the internal balance, it will receive normally additional price cuts. If the book as a whole is internally considered overpowered, if the book is externally and totally considered overpowered, then after the internal adjustment of the internal balance, it will get price rises.